I am so excited to welcome you not only to Jacksonville, but to the launching of the podcast called The Covenant, more specifically, the Sister Covenant. And yes, I did say sister. What is the covenant, the Sister Covenant? It is a circle of friends, my friends for 20, 30, 40 plus years, your friends, all of our friends, coming together in a safe space at a time such as this. We as women of color, we are counted on to nurture our families, our children, our significant others, our spouses, our community, our corporate boardrooms, and everything in between. But who fills our cup? I think about flying, and when we get ready to take off, what is said to us first? Put your oxygen mask on first before you can assist others. And that exactly is what the Sister Covenant is all about. A safe space to encourage, to listen, to cry a little, laugh a lot, but most important, to empower and to fill our cup.
Good morning. Great Sunday morning, and welcome to the 26th podcast of the Sister Covenant. Oh my goodness, as we are approaching our 1 year, can you believe that? 1 year anniversary in this space. We thank you. We thank you for your love, your support, but most of all, your prayers that we are touching lives and we are making an impact in this space at a time such as this. We are super excited. Over the next 40 plus days, you are going to see some amazing women, 50 as a matter of fact, amazing, powerful women that will be lifting their voice to elevate this public health issue of the COVID-19, and I like to refer to it as the COVID 2.0. We are remaining vigilant and we are promoting vaccinations here at the Sister Covenant. So over the next 40 plus days, we will be pushing out our PSAs with all of those beautiful women that will be giving you their why they chose to get vaccinated. So stay tuned. And we have a special PSA that we're going to share with you at the end of the show. Thank you for purchasing your Sister Covenant merchandise. It is not too late. I was at dinner last night with a dear person in my life, and she said, I got to get my merchandise. Well, you too can get your merchandise. Go on the sistercovenant.com, and there it is, that beautiful merchandise. You can be a part of the Sister Circle and represent us well. You know that for every $100 that you spend, $10 will be donated on behalf of the Sister Covenant directly to UNCF. We will be promoting our partnership with UNCF next month as we are entering a new season, and we understand that our students, although they're back on campus this semester in the middle of a pandemic, there is so much work still yet to be done to ensure that they have all the resources that they need. And we know, and mine is certainly a terrible thing to waste. So we will be partnering with that organization. Now, back to how you can get engaged in this campaign, this movement around being vigilant and vaccinated. We told you 2 weeks ago on the 25th podcast that we were issuing a campaign 25 or 25 challenge, where you can post your picture or video on why you got vaccinated. Use the hashtags powerful women get vaccinated. Together we win. Tag 3 friends. And it's just that simple. And be a part of this movement to encourage and save lives. Now, let's get to our conversations this morning. I am super excited to welcome back a guest, but not a guest, a family member, someone that I've known for most of my life, a dear friend, Yolanda Cash Jackson. Yolanda Cash Jackson is an attorney, but she also has a passion of reshaping and influencing women at this space. So Yolanda, come on in. Welcome, 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 welcome. Good morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you, my friend?
I am great on this great Sunday morning. This is the day that the Lord has made.
Amen. Amen. So, Yolanda, we don't have to go through a whole bunch of formalities.
Mm-hmm.
We are here again. Yesterday, I believe, was a rally in our nation's capital. I don't know the name of it. What was it?
6, I think they called it.
J6. Okay, so we had a rally yesterday. I just talked about being vigilant and vaccinated, and we've heard all of the noise, I'll say, around masking, and certainly we're going to talk about here today, and the reason you agreed to come back on and talk about in the state of Florida, HB 90, that bill that passed, and we got redistricting since the 2020 census came out. There's a lot for us to unpack. We're in a mess, Yolanda. Help us. Tell us what we need to know so these women can get going and we can start doing what we need to do to get us out of where we are right now.
Well, I can just say that everybody needs to be vigilant leading into this next legislative session. And yes, it is a lot to unpack. Yes, there is a lot going on. So I would first encourage everyone to pay attention to a website called myflorida.com. Put it on your tag. Pay attention to everything that is being filed and going ahead in Tallahassee. So let me go over real quick to schedule and what we can expect. Next week, we will start what they call committee weeks. So we will have committee weeks all the way up to January. Session starts early this year, and being the election year, so we have between September and January to also make our voices heard and talk to your legislators, talk to those who are not your legislators but are on some very, very important committees, some special committees that have been set up that are starting this week. Redistricting. The committee is starting this week. There are 2. There's one for Congress and there's one for the state legislature. And we'll unpack that a little bit later. But those 2 committees start this week. Also, there's a committee on pandemic, a pandemic committee led in the House by Representative Danny Perez out of South Florida. The redistricting committees are the congressional one is led by Representative Leak and Senator Ray Rodriguez. So even though they're not your legislators, they are certainly ones who can hear your thoughts and concerns. So I'm going to stop right there, but we have a very, very busy session at SB 90, which I will start with at your direction, and then of course redistricting, and all of the stuff in between, including some things that we have to do with water, infrastructure. There were a lot of infrastructure dollars, education, the education gap that we know exists because of the pandemic. And then all of the federal dollars that have come down to the state of Florida that have yet to be spent or allocated. So I want to stop right there. There's a lot.
It's a lot. So Yolanda, tell us about SB 90. We know here in Florida, and we know our listeners are all over, and there are similar bills that have been signed in Texas and other parts in Georgia, our neighboring state. But SB 90 is here in Florida. Tell us what exactly, because what I've heard it referred to as the voter suppression bill. So tell us what it is and what we should be aware of that's in that bill that will affect us when we go to the polls coming up in the next election cycle.
So once again, you're going to tag myflorida.com and you can search SB 90. There is so much. It's a 48-page law promoted by Senator Dennis Baxley from the Ocala area. But basically, Florida, like Texas, we hear a lot about the Texas law, and we know that there was a lot of drama about getting that law passed. It eventually passed, but SB 90 takes aim at mainly mail voting, and it's called voter suppression because there were some changes that people just didn't think was necessary. In fact, there's a lot of reference to our Governor DeSantis, who talked about the record great election that we had yet thereafter this voting bill was passed. So let me just, I can't go through the entire bill. We don't have enough time, but let me tell you some of the key highlights. It makes it harder for voters to access secure ballot drop boxes. We heard a lot about that. It requires the drop boxes to be located either at a permanent county voting office or at an early voting location accessible only during early voting hours. Regardless of location, such boxes must be staffed by a county employee, which is likely to further restrict the hours of availability. Local elected officials will be subject to a $25,000 fine. So that's just an example. Another quick example, SB 90 also makes it harder for state and local officials to solve problems and protect voters. It prohibits local and state elected officials from relying on outside funding for election-related expenses, even during emergencies. So last year, for example, nonpartisan philanthropic grants were essential to election officials' ability to conduct safe elections during the pandemic. And it also limits the ability of state and county agencies to settle lawsuits related to elections without interference by the legislature and attorney general. So those are just a few, but the key part is that there is something going on in Washington that can save us. However, that's not going too well either, and that's the For the People Act, which is yet to be passed, but it would require that all voters receive absentee ballot applications and allow voters to request their ballots, allow voters to vote by mail without a voter ID, and then prohibit states from placing limits on how many absentee ballots a person can retain on behalf of others. So those are just some key highlights. And yes, there should be some concerns. We need to be pressing to make sure that the For the People Act passes. And our senators in Florida are not quite on board yet. So we have a lot of work to do.
So that's a great segue. Win with Black women. We've had Joteka Edie on before and yourself, and we've recently launched Win with Black Women Florida, and you're the convener of that. Tell us a little bit about that organization and what we're doing around some of these issues that you just mentioned to us.
So you mentioned Joteka Edie, and 90 other women got together and just decided that they wanted to change the narrative for Black women in politics, particularly centering around the election of our now Vice President Kamala Harris. Well, through that time, they worked on just elevating Black women, elevating the narrative, and then they started working on making sure that Georgia had a fair election. And from that, we continued to look at national issues of voter suppression, of making sure that we had Black women being elected in mayoral races, particularly one in St. Louis. There was one in New York. So anyway, I just decided that we needed some help in Florida. And so Black Women Florida is just a collective of Black women. It's not necessarily an organization, but we get together on Monday nights and we talk about a lot of things. We talked about voter suppression, SB 90. We had the Black women who are, I think it's 10 of them, and I think 8 of the 10 were on, along with our Florida legislators, talking about their plight in Florida. We had the Black women in the Florida legislature on as well. And let me tell you, it was heart-wrenching to hear their pain of going through these bills during this session. So we will continue to bring and highlight Black women. Last week we talked about Black women in sports. Not many people knew that the wonderful Orange Blossom Classic that came back to Miami was run by a Black woman, that the Sports Foundation is run by a Black woman, that the Orange Bowl will have its first Black woman to lead the Orange Bowl committee. So we just want to elevate Black women, and that's what we're trying to do.
So what you're saying is when Black women enter the room, we bring our Black magic. Everywhere,
yes,
everywhere we go. It's not relegated to any one space.
Right.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Mm-hmm.
How can these women on this podcast get engaged, or is it exclusive to certain women?
Listen, there's nothing exclusive. Too much is given, much is required. And those of us who are good tithers and on Sunday know that the more we give, the more we receive. So we want everyone is invited that has an interest in promoting and elevating the good news about Black women. Feel free to reach out to me or reach out to any of the women that have been on, and we can share the Zoom link. It's not exclusive, nothing special except being interested in the promotion and elevation of Black women.
So the 2020 census is out. The numbers are out, and you've alluded to it. A lot going on, but why was it so important that we, one, complete the census, and how do those numbers specifically translate to redistricting and what we potentially may see here in Florida change because of those numbers?
So listen, I know within our sorority, I know we're sorors, we talked about the census every day and how important it was to be counted. And this is why, redistricting is why. And Florida will have the opportunity, it appears, to gain a congressional seat. And that congressional seat looks like that will occur in Central Florida during along the I-4 corridor, as it's called. There's also a possibility that on the state level that we may have some adjustments in South Florida, in that it is possible that in South Florida we may lose a Black Senate seat, a Black access Senate seat. Didn't necessarily mean a Black legislator, but a Black access Senate seat. There are some areas like Central Florida that have congressional districts, and I'm going to go back to the congressional districts that are overpopulated. And there are some districts that are underpopulated. So actually one in the Jacksonville, Tallahassee seat that's congressional, that Congressman Lawson is in, that seat is a little bit underpopulated. So they may have to expand that district. Then when you go further to the Panhandle, that district may have to be adjusted. So the census is the thing that gives us the numbers where those adjustments need to be had. And there will be winners and losers. And so I'll stop there, and then we can go through the winners and losers and some other concerns that I have.
Well, I want you to express your concerns, but I also want to touch upon the fact that we're hopeful that we'll have a woman of color, a Black woman, to represent us in the Senate.
Yes, that is possible. So, my analysis, which is not official, but I think that it is possible to elect a Black woman statewide to the U.S. Senate. Right now, we do not have a Black woman in the United States Senate at all. And I know that this is a nonpartisan, non-political show, and I'm not endorsing one way or the other. I'll just put it that way. But it is certainly possible that past statewide elections show that it is possible that a Black woman could be in the U.S. Senate. She would be the only one right now, although there is another Black woman running for the United States Senate in another state. She would be the first and only in Florida. And so that is yet to be seen. That race is in November of 2022, and we can talk about that as well.
So, Yolanda, our time is never enough, but tell us what we need to know. Give us our marching orders and tell us what gives you hope in this season. We started out all dooms and glooms, right? J6, all of that, pandemic. But what gives you hope in this season?
I hope that the women on this sister covenant will pay attention. That's all we need to do is pay attention. What gives me hope is, what gives me hope real quickly is that we have been organizing as Black women throughout the many organizations that we're in. If you're a member of the Links like I am, we've had thousands of women on the line at one time. We've had sorority meetings on Zoom. We didn't have Zoom in the last election, right? When we almost were able to win statewide, we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have the ability to communicate so quickly. So I'm hoping and hopeful that will make a difference. That's number one. Although I do have a bit of a concern in South Florida, where we will have an empty seat throughout this legislative session, where we won't have anyone we may not have sufficient coverage to defend and support some continuity in Broward and Palm Beach County. That is a huge concern to me, because at all levels, local, state, House and Senate, and at the federal level, we will be missing an elected official. So it's going to call upon the rest of the folks that are concerned about minority representation to get in there. It's going to require for us to pay attention, to read the paper, not just to read the paper, but to also to communicate over social media throughout our organizations about our concern about representation, because there are winners and losers in this redistricting fight. I'm sorry.
We gotta stay
vigilant. This is not the time to back off. More than ever, those of us who have the power of the purse, we need to donate, who have the power of the voice for wonderful programs like this, we have to express our voice, make sure our voice is heard. Our voice is our vote.
Well, Yolanda, you said it best. It scares me when I hear people say things like, well, we're not in a main election, so I don't need to worry about all of that. No, this is the time. This is the time. We know that most politics are local politics, but we have to stay vigilant and understand all that is happening around us, because sometimes when you show up, you're a little late and a dollar short because you've not kept up with all of the new laws, and you think it's business as usual. And it is business as usual, but it isn't the business you think is happening as usual. That's right. Well, Yolanda, you keep us straight. You tell it to us straight. And we love you here on the Sister Covenant. And you will be back, my sister, because again, we got a lot to look forward to over the next year and a half.
Yeah, we do. We have governor's race. We have every cabinet is up in 2022. So we have a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do, but we're up for the task. Thank you, my dear friend.
Thank you.
You have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you very much.
She is amazing. She's a powerful woman, well respected on both sides of the aisles. And she is doing the good work and the good fight. So I welcome back to the Sister Covenant another veteran, another dear friend, a sister here in this space. Actually, one of our first guests a year ago, my dear friend, Donna Deegan. Donna is a journalist and a philanthropist here in Jacksonville, and so much more. Come on into the studio, Donna.
Good morning, my friend. So good to be with you.
Good morning. Good morning. As I was thinking about that, you were actually our very first featured sister on the Sister Covenant, November 1st. Can you believe that? It's been
so honored, Pat, to have been your first guest, especially given the lack of some melanin in my face. Although does Lebanese count as a woman of color? I don't know. That's my family heritage. So I think that maybe a little bit.
Listen, you are definitely a sister in this space, and you're a sister in the fight. And that is what we're concerned about. So let's unpack some of that. And your bio is everywhere, right? It's on the Sister Covenant, but I want you to speak to who Donna Elizabeth Hazuri Deegan really is. But we know you to be a journalist. We know about the Donna here in the Northeast Florida section of the state of Florida. We know that you are a mom and you are a wife, but we know that you are vigilant around healthcare, and that's your passion. So talk to us and tell us who the Donna Deegan is that we see before us this morning.
Well, usually when you hear your whole name invoked, you're in trouble. So I hope that's not the case, but I do appreciate it, Pat. I am, I'm very vigilant about healthcare. But when I say healthcare, I mean, the health of the entire community, and that just stretches so far beyond breast cancer, which is really what I'm known for. Obviously, I am a 3-time breast cancer survivor, as you know. But I've always been passionate about health. I think that if you look at so many of the statistics in our community, whether it's infant mortality statistics, whether it's our markers for specific things like diabetes, we just don't do a very good job in terms of hitting health targets, considering the fact that we have some of the best health care in the country in our area. What we don't have in a really real way in this community, and we need to fix it, is access to that care. And that, I think, goes on a whole spectrum of things in our city that we could talk about. But certainly I am very passionate about health. I'm very passionate about this community. My family's been here, as you said, for 4 generations. I guess everybody was from Springfield back in the day, but that's Springfield, East Side. That's where my family was back in the day. And I just have a passion for this entire city. And I have 2 incredible kids. One is living in Tampa. I'd love to bring her back to Jacksonville, and then the other one is here. But they're both fantastic kids. One's 26, one's 29. I know it seems impossible to believe I could have children that old, Pat, but that's the case. And of course, my wonderful husband, Tim, who is flips a coin and guesses the weather every day. So we've been married. We have been married 20 years in next August. So that's sort of the background on me. And my background at First Coast News. I was there for 25 years as a journalist, and then of course started the Donna Foundation after I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
So Donna, let's talk a little bit about the Donna. So we had the 2020 year. It was kind of our purgatory year where a lot of things were Zoom. And that was great. As Yolanda just mentioned, it still gave us the ability to connect. But it's going to be live this year, or in 2022. Is this the 15th or the 16th?
15th.
The 15th anniversary. So a milestone year. So tell us, how did the Donna, or the 26.2 marathon, come about? What was the impotence? And I think you kind of touched on it already, but tell us about that journey.
Well, Yolanda really said it. To whom much is given, much is required. And I was so very, very grateful to have been diagnosed with breast cancer at a time when I had a good job, had good family support, had good insurance. I was on the news at that point for my first diagnosis, and I started hearing from scores of women who have not that sort of structure around them, who didn't have that ability to have the type of care that I had. And the stories were heartbreaking. I heard from women who were making choices between food and medicine. As you know, in the Black community, there is a much higher instance of death among women with breast cancer. A lot of that has to do with access of care. There are so many financial concerns, not wanting to burden the family. So the reason I started the Donna Foundation was because I had this ability. I had this megaphone that was attached to my mouth, and I thought, why not use that for something good in my community? And so we started the Donna Foundation back in 2003 as a way to help underserved families with breast cancer pay for their critical needs while they were going through treatment. And we started the 26.2 at Donna because they say, marry your passions, right? And one of my passions was running. So I asked people to start running with me to raise money for that purpose, and ended up having an incredible doctor at the Mayo Clinic named Dr. Edith Perez, and a running coach named Jeff Galloway, who was a marathoner in the 1972 Olympics. And we all sort of joined forces and said, there's no marathon out there in the country specific to breast cancer care and breast cancer research. Why don't we start our own? Ignorance is bliss, right? But if you have a mission, if you have a vision, you can make that happen. And that's what we did. So we got the stakeholders together, and in 2008, we launched the inaugural 26.2 with Donna, and we've sent millions of dollars to both the underserved community and to help with breast cancer research breakthroughs. So very proud of that effort, and frankly, just so proud to bring people from all over the world to Jacksonville every year to see what a wonderful community we have.
So this year, how is it going to be different with this being the 15th anniversary and it's coming back live? Anything we can expect different this year?
Well, we're moving the start line into Jacksonville Beach for we can social distance there better. Clearly, that's still going to be an issue for us as we continue into this pandemic. We're going to have to make sure we go by some CDC guidelines in terms of how we ask people to mask and what we do in terms of separating runners. But at the end of the day, we're excited to be able to be back in person. We know a lot more now about various spread rates outside versus inside, and the things that we can do to keep ourselves safe. We're also going to add a 15K for the 15th anniversary. So people have their choice of another distance to run this year. So if you don't feel like running 26 miles or 13 miles, you can run a 15K, which is 9.3 miles, or you can run a relay. But we're just really excited to be back to lift people, because that's really the goal of this race, not only to raise money, but to lift our sisters out there with breast cancer and let them know that we're there for them.
So you need to create another race with a 5, like a 5K 5K.
There is a
walk.
5K, Pat. There's
Okay,
a
5K
not only
walk.
is there a 5K, but there is also a 1 mile fun run. So there's literally no excuses. Everybody has to come out, and you can walk, run, or crawl. We don't care as long as
I
you're.
need a 5K walk. I need a 5K cute walk.
You got it.
I don't want to keep running at all. Okay, we'll talk after this. So we know that you're fourth generation Jacksonville, graduate of Bishop Kenny, graduate of the Florida State University. We both.
We're not going to talk football today, Pat.
We're not going to talk football at all today, but we both majored in journalism at Florida State. And you come from a political family, Donna. You're a beloved cousin, and we still are lifting you in prayer. Tommy Hazouri was probably one of the most beloved mayors here in Jacksonville, who just passed away, and we just celebrated his life in such a beautiful way over the past week or so. So, Donna, the question here on the Sister Covenant for you: is there a future? We know you had a congressional run in 2020. I want to hear a little bit about that and where you are today and where you feel you can best serve this community and all the passion that you bring to that.
Well, thanks, Pat. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that sent the family prayers and good wishes and told stories about Tommy. I just have to say that the family was just completely overwhelmed. Tommy was overwhelmed. And I can tell you where he was at his home, had a big TV right in front of him. He watched everything. He was absolutely Tommy as we know him up until the very end, smiling, telling stories. He had such a love for Jacksonville, and was all about community and bringing people together. So, Tommy and I have been talking politics since I was a kid. Loved him dearly and was just so sad to lose him. But it was beautiful to see the way the community came together to let him know the feelings about him before he passed. And I know that his wife, Carol, of 42 years, also really appreciated that. So thank you for that. The congressional race was interesting. We had a 600,000 person congressional district. About a third of that, less than a third really, about 160,000 of that was Democrats, which was the party that I ran in. And we really overperformed the district. We did well. We didn't win, but we had the highest performing red district in the state. So I was proud of that. I was proud of the votes that we did move. And I think because we couldn't get out in the pandemic, that was a big detractor in terms of the race. But also what I didn't really anticipate was how the virus would cause people to really hunker down in their bunkers. And that was an unfortunate thing. But in terms of future, I am very strongly looking at a run for mayor coming up in 2023. I think we have to return this community to the people. And I think it's really important that we keep the promises that we made 60 years ago that we simply haven't kept. And I don't think we have to choose between moving our city forward and doing that. I think it just comes down to political will. So absolutely, I'm considering that. Have started a political committee to start that process, and certainly we'll keep you posted on the future plans. But I think it's very important to give people a choice, and I think so many of the things that we have not accomplished as a community have come down to the fact that we simply have not had the political will. It's easy to give things lip service when you're on the spot. Whether it comes to Confederate monuments or spending money on the sewers or whatever it is, but to consistently sustain an effort to really address those issues means you have to really keep the promises to those communities that you've been making for a long time. And I think we haven't done a very good job of that. And that would be a priority for me if I should decide to move forward with this.
So Donna, we've talked about the nation and how divisive we really are. And for me, the Sister Covenant was birthed because of where we were back a little better than a year ago, with all the noise, with the pandemic, with the George Floyd incident, the George Floyd murder. And you mentioned monuments and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you had that opportunity, your mantra has been love over fear, over hate. How do you bring all of the passion that we've talked about over the years of being a journalist, over the years of the Donna, and now being where you are? How do you bring that mantra that you live? I've seen your posts of the beautiful sunsets. It isn't always warm and fuzzy, I don't think, in City Hall. So how do you help us bridge this divide?
Yeah, listen, choosing love over fear doesn't have anything to do with living in la la land. It simply means that you face your obstacles and you proceed through them with optimism and purpose. That you're not fearful, looking over your shoulder, blaming people, worrying about the negative things that could happen. The bottom line is it all comes down to love for our community, for each other. The fact that we don't need to approach everything, and I know we're going to hear from Lakesha in a few minutes, and I'm so excited about that because she also has a very powerful story. But the whole idea of the way that we address each other in community, we need to build relationships again. We can't have the attitude of if I've got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And I think that it all comes down to building trust and relationships in community and keeping promises, frankly. So choosing love over fear, I think sometimes people hear it and they say, oh, that sounds like some hippy dippy stuff. It really is not. It is simply a mindset of believing, as Yolanda said, if we engage and we have purpose and we believe that we can come together and make these changes, we can do it. If we are in a defeatist or fearful attitude, then what happens? We lose our voice. And in order to really have a powerful voice, we've got to be willing to use it. But to look at each other and say, you know what, we may not agree on everything, but we're going to work together and we're going to work with purpose, but we're going to have the right priorities. And that, to me, is the way we move forward in love over fear.
Well, Donna, you are definitely a dynamo. You are definitely passionate about those things that you believe in. And we are so, so fortunate to have you here as a jewel in our community and all that you do to represent women, to represent sisters, and to represent the best of who we can be. So, you have definitely a cheerleader group here within this circle that's going to be right there with you. So you promise to come back when you officially launch?
Whenever you want me, Pat, I will be right here. I love being part of this group.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we told you, Black Girl Magic.
I believe in Black Girl Magic, girl.
Thank you, my friend. And good luck with the Donna. I'm there for that 5K walk cute run. Okay.
You got it.
About that. Thank you. She is amazing and a dear, dear friend. And we do continue to lift their family up in prayer. Now, I am excited to welcome to the Sister Covenant a new friend, Lakesha Burton. Lakesha Burton is the Assistant Chief and Zone Commander, Zone 2, in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Good morning, Lakesha, and welcome.
Good morning, Pat. Thank you. I'm excited to be in this space with all the sisters.
With all the sisters, with an A.
Yes.
Well, welcome. So you are already in an elite club, if you will. From what I understand and reading your bio, there are only 4 other African-American women that have been assistant chiefs in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So tell us about your journey, how you kind of came to be in this space, and why sheriff at this time? Why run for sheriff?
Yeah, so thank you. But first, let me just say that I've had a very, very blessed life and professional career. And my journey truly started because of so many extraordinary women that paved the way, particularly in law enforcement. It's as late as the 1600s when women police officers had to wear dresses. I can imagine that. But their only job was to take care of kids and do clerical work. So we certainly have come a long way. But I do want to take a moment just to give a shout out to my friend and colleague, Dolores Patterson. She has just recently been promoted, and she's our very first Black female director. So I am very, very excited and proud of her as well. And I could just tell you, so it's that combined with my life experiences and my professional experience, coupled with this deep commitment and love for public safety, that I am here. So I like when people ask about why sheriff. And I always say, why not? So I knew very early on in my career in this male dominant profession that as a woman, in order to affect change and make positive impact, that I had to get promoted. And that's what I did. I worked hard over the years to earn every rank. Nobody's giving me anything. And I can tell you, wherever I have worked under my leadership, people, processes, and the place have been better, and we've been successful. So when I started thinking about the culture and climate in which we are in law enforcement, I really believe actually is one of the most noble professions there is. So, but I began to think about 2023, our current sheriff term will be up. And I just really felt deeply that the next leader that leads this agency should be somebody who has deep ties to our community and have been in the trenches and understand the plight of all members of our community, no matter where you are. And really, we needed somebody that has the ability to bridge the gap, to build trust. And I believe that that is a direct correlation to how we have crime reduction. So after much prayer, I went and vowed to be the next sheriff and run for the sheriff here in Duval County.
So, Lakesha, you've touched on it, crime. You have the statistics, I'm sure, and it's not unique to Jacksonville. It's not unique to Florida. We've seen, even in this pandemic, the increase in crime. Do you feel that, and you talked about back in the day in dresses, and is Jacksonville ready for a woman to be sheriff?
I love that question. I've been asked that so many times, and honestly, let's keep it real, ladies. I'm not naive. As a matter of fact, I know that there are some that may say, no, we're not ready. And not only because of my race, but because of my gender and my age and political party. And that list goes on and on. I just recently had a Caucasian older man. He said, look, I would never vote for a Black female, but I can tell you what's important to me and what I'm focused on is the people. Concerned citizens of Duval County. I've been talking and meeting with so many different people, and I can tell you all over our city, people have a deep desire for change. They have a deep desire for something different from somebody different. So if that change is in the form of me, Lakesha Burton, then I'll say, yes, Jacksonville is ready. But also that was the same question back in 1995 when former Sheriff Glover ran. And I can tell you the city, they spoke loudly and they said yes. And I'm telling you, we were better because of it.
So, Lakesha, I've heard your story, and it's a powerful one. Part of it is your love, your passion for this community, but it's your servitude, it's your servant's heart, and some of what you've done. And it's some of your youthful decisions that maybe you made that at the time people counted you out and said you were not going to be because of those, but you showed your true grit. Would you share some of that with us here at the Sister Covenant?
Oh, yes. Actually, I have been proudly, courageously sharing my personal story for many years is because, number one, I believe strongly that safe homes and safe communities is the very foundation of where hopes and dreams and futures are built. And I believe that every community, every child in communities all over our city deserve that. But I understand that very up close and personal. And that's why I have been sharing my story, and not for empathy, but because it's a story about redemption, about resiliency. It's about opportunity. Being sexually abused from the age of 11 to 14, having a baby at 14 years old, getting pregnant at 14 years old and having my baby at 15. My life spiraled out of control after years of abuse, and I turned to drugs and alcohol and prostitution. I had very low self-esteem. I was homeless at one point in my life and very hopeless. And in 1992, I was at a crossroad, ready to give up. I literally felt like my life had no value. And I tell people, if I had access to a firearm then, I would not be sitting here today. But God had a different plan for me. And his plan for my life has been manifesting both through my personal and professional life. And I can tell you that is why I have been in the trenches of communities my entire career, meeting the needs of people, meeting them right where they are, because that's where I was met. So that's really been my drive to be the change, to make a difference. And that really inspired me to get into this work.
So you've led the effort of PAL, Police Academy, I'm not saying it correct, PAL. What does the acronym stand for?
Police Athletic League.
That's right. Police Athletic League. You founded a foundation. Is it Tisha's Hands?
Yes.
In honor of your sister, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Tell us a little bit about those two. This is your story. I want this audience to hear and see you for all you are.
Well, thank you. Let me start with the Police Athletic League. For those who don't know, it is a 501c youth servant organization. It's our department's signature nonprofit, but I like to tell people it's the largest crime prevention tool that we have at our fingertips. But it is certainly an organization that really saved my life. And it was the encounter with a police officer when I was 16 years old. He changed the trajectory of my life when he just simply listened. He used compassion, he used wisdom, and he used discretion. And instead of taking me to the juvenile detention facility, he took me to the Police Athletic League with my baby. And that really put me on a pathway of success and got me off the road of being, a criminal. And a couple years after that, I was afforded the opportunity to get a full basketball scholarship to college, to play college basketball, in which I took my baby. And who would have thought that my life would come full circle in 2015 when under Sheriff Rutherford at the time, he appointed me as the first female CEO to run the Police Athletic League, the very entity that saved my life. So I am a product of early intervention and prevention. So I advocate for youth, and I always will. I think that is the key to addressing a lot of our crime issues. So my twin sister, I was not born alone, believe it or not. My sweet twin sister, Tisha, at the age of 1, she was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. She was bound to a wheelchair. She could not walk or talk, but she talked in her own way. And for years and years, I had made a decision that I would be ×2 for her. So the things that she could not do, I would do for her. And she was resilient. She was one of the strongest people I know. And doctors said that she would not survive through her teen years, but she survived until we were 42 years old. So how I dealt with the grief and really being twinless, my husband decided that we would create a nonprofit in her honor, and it's called Tisha's Hands. And I just simply, all the things that I've been committed to doing and that I'm passionate about doing, I just put it underneath an umbrella. And my mission is to simply just really help those who are in need. And I do that locally, nationally, and internationally. Over the last 5 years, I've been to 7 countries, going to some of the most impoverished communities and helping children and women, you name it. And we do that. So it's just an awesome way to keep my sister's legacy alive, and also being a police officer, we are responding to people's lives at their very lowest and many times in their critical times. So a lot of times when people are in need, there's so much red tape that you have to go through. So in my nonprofit, as small as it is, my officers know that I am a resource. My organization is a resource. So we can provide, maybe food, water, some of those necessities that many people in our communities don't have access to easily. So that's in a nutshell. So I'm just super proud that you even asked me that question about Tisha.
Well, as a mother who had a daughter at 13 pass away, but was a special needs child with cerebral palsy, when I heard your story, it resonated with me. And the fact that you bring your whole self, Lakesha. I don't know if you're able to read the comments, but comments like, you are the real deal. So when I asked the question, is Jacksonville ready for a woman, and you happen to be a woman of color, the comments resounding are yes.
Yes.
And if they're not, get ready, because here she comes. So I am so proud of you, and we here at the Sister Covenant certainly support you and wish you and pray for Godspeed to you. And like Donna, you promised to come back a little later and let us know how it's going.
Absolutely. Now, I know you asked me, what would I say to my younger self if I was 20, to my 20-year-old self?
Yeah.
And I started thinking, and it was so very powerful for me. So I just jotted down some notes. I said, this is a note that I would give my 20-year self. And I'll just read it real quick. So I said, I'm proud of you. I'm proud that you are in the process of letting go of your pain, shame, and embarrassment of your childhood. You forgiving those who trespass against you will give you an extraordinary ability to love and show compassion that will help others for years to come. For those who judge you through a secular lens will think that you are over the top, but those who see through a spiritual lens will see Jesus. All that you went through and will go through in the upcoming years will prepare you for your purpose and calling in the profession of law enforcement. P.S. Just make sure you always give God the praise, the glory, and the honor. So before I leave, I just give God all the praise, all the glory, and all the honor. I am proof that whatever you go through in your life does not have to dictate your future or dictate who you are. So I am apologetically who I am every single day. So thank you for this time.
Beautiful, simply beautiful, Lakesha. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those words, and thank you for being unapologetically who you are, because there are young girls, that 20-year-old and younger, that needed to hear that this morning, and that need to see you in all of what God has purposed you to do, especially at a time such as this. Thank you for coming in, my friend, my new friend.
Yes, thank you so much.
Be blessed.
Yes.
Oh, I am so full this morning, and I am just excited. It is a time that we could get overwhelmed, and we could just throw our hands up and say, what does it matter? Well, it matters because too much that has been given, much is expected from us. And we're going to continue to do this work and do the good work and be in the good fight. And I am so honored to be here with these powerful women to do this good work. So as I promised at the top of the hour, we have one of our first PSAs that we're going to push out. I mentioned to you that we have 50 powerful women, some of which were on this podcast this morning, a part of this movement in this campaign to be vigilant, remain vigilant, and to be vaccinated. 50 powerful women and one guy. And so today I want to share that very first PSA that we are going to start pushing out, and it has that one guy as a part of it. But before we go there, I want to end this podcast in a tribute to a dear friend of mine who passed away from COVID just 2 weeks ago, and we will be celebrating his beautiful life tomorrow. A college friend, we've known each other for 42 years as freshmen at Florida State University, Sylvester Taylor, a beautiful human being and someone that will be sorely missed. So with that, sisters, as always, be bold, be brilliant, be brave, my sisters. Be beautiful as you all are, and be blessed.
Hello, my name is Dr. Courtney Owens.
And I'm Dr. Virginal Owens.
So, from your perspective as a surgeon, what have you seen the effects of COVID-19 are in your practice?
It's a very good question. As you being an emergency medicine physician, you're on the front lines of everything. So you see it the second it comes in. From my standpoint, what I've seen more is the peripheral effects of it. So one of the biggest things that happens is that when you have this huge influx of COVID patients that you have to treat, they have to be taken care of, in the ICUs, on the floors, throughout the hospital. Everybody suffers. So, I've seen examples where there's a tumor patient who needs to get a tumor removed, but there's no beds in the hospital. Or there's a patient with a chronic issue, it's debilitating, they can't work, they can't feed their family, but they can't get the surgery because there's no room in the hospital. So I've seen a bunch of examples like that where COVID not only affects the people that get it, but it also affects everyone around it. It affects the entire community. And there's so many people that, need services, need help. But when COVID is such a prolific and just destructive force, it's hard to really help anybody. So everybody's backlogged and everybody's struggling, not only, the patients, but the people who are trying to take care of them. I know you felt the effects of that probably much more than me, but, when I'm sitting, in the clinic or, we're planning for a surgery, we just had a surgery recently that got canceled because we didn't have enough availability for beds. So I think that's something people need to think about, is that it not only affects the people who are infected, but it also affects literally every other person with any other known illness, disease, problem, trauma. Everybody's affected by this disease. So that's why we're both here, telling people to get vaccinated. It's bigger than you, it's bigger than me, bigger than all of us. And together we have to work towards getting to a common goal and making sure everybody gets taken care of in the future.
So Virginal, what do you feel like is the biggest disconnect, the biggest reason why people like us, young African Americans, are not getting vaccinated?
It's a really tough question. I think it is multifaceted. I think one of the things is distrust, just pure distrust in the medical community. There's been a history of Black people being experimented on, whether it be through Tuskegee or even the way OBGYN knowledge was built up in the beginning. So that's one thing. I think another thing is misinformation. I think there's a lot of misinformation and also truth out there, and it's hard to discern which is which. And depending on who you talk to and when, you can hear a different story about what may be going on. I think that's two of the biggest problems. I think another problem is just purely there's not enough of us who are telling each other to get vaccinated. I think, we have to be our own best advocates. We have to be our own big brothers and big sisters, and really tell the people that we know and love that, this is important. This is something you should do.
I completely agree with everything you're saying. And another big aspect that I always think about is in regards to the distrust in the medical community. We have no other motive other than wanting to see you healthy. I'm not a politician and I don't want or need your vote. I'm not a company and I don't want or need your business. We are physicians, and all we want and all we need is for you, your family, and your community to be healthy.
My name is Dr. Anita Pettaway Tyler, and I am the medical contributor for the awesome Sister Covenant. I am here to tell you that I would like to encourage you to remain vigilant. We all must. COVID-19 is running rampant in our communities, and so we must do something. The something is prevention. The way to prevent COVID-19 is, number one, to get a vaccination. Millions of people have been vaccinated to date, and the vaccine is safe and effective. The other thing that we can do is to make sure that we're masking. We should wear our mask indoors and also outdoors in crowds where the vaccination status is unknown. And lastly, we can make sure that we continue to practice social distancing. We must do this to prevent COVID-19. We can do this, and together we win. Thank you.
We urge, we besiege, we implore you, we beg you today, right now, in this moment, to remain vigilant. These are uncertain times, and we ask you to encourage everyone you care about and love, and even those you don't, to wear their mask, wash their hands, practice good hygiene, remain socially distant, and get the vaccination. Powerful women get vaccinated, and together we win.